Hey guys, today I'm going to do Johnny Depp's natal chart, and he was born June 9, 1963 at 8:44 a.m. in Oswinboro, Kentucky. So he was born a Leo riser, pretty much, and he's got a stellium in his first house, as I can see here. He's got Uranus, he's got Mars, and he's got Pluto. Now, Leo rising loves to be the center of attention. I have a couple of family members, if not all of them, that have Leo rising, which is amazing. And these people are very, very loud, and they love the attention. And I got two family members that also have his placement of the Mars in the first house. So they're very determined individuals. They could be egotistical, and they have a lot of physical energy, which I kind of wish I had. But they have a lot of physical energy, and they're just invincible sometimes. Now, I also have another person here that has the same placement as his, that has Uranus conjunct Mars in the first house, and with Leo rising. And let me tell you something. People with Uranus in the first house are pretty much shit starters. Uranus in the first house people are very unpredictable. You just don't know what their next move is, and they usually like to start things, or they could actually start problems. They could actually, if it's not problems, because not all is negative, they could actually start new ideas. They come up with ideas because Uranus has to do with the genius, the inner genius. So when you have it in the first house, you're pretty much a genius, and you could even come up with a lot of stories of your own that are not even real. With Johnny Depp, man, he could play all kinds of characters. He's very versatile. He's very weird because, Uranus rules Aquarius. Aquarius is a weirdo sometimes, They don't follow trends. They form their own trend. People label them as very unique and very extroverted. So he's got that thing going on right there in the first house. So he could play the Mad Hatter. He could play Jack Sparrow. He could play all kinds of different roles. And they're all completely a different person. Okay. His roles are also very intense and have a lot of depth and meaning behind them. Esoteric meaning. The Mad Hatter, Alice in Wonderland, that's a complete occult movie. Jack Sparrow, that's not an occult movie, but his character, he says that he doesn't like, watching, his movies afterwards because it's kind of like another person. It's kind of like he's channeling another person. So he's got Pluto in the first house. And he's very intense, it's a very hidden placement for a person to have in the first house. They're very secretive. And speaking of secretive, he's got another secretive placement, which he's got the Moon in Capricorn. And Moon in Capricorn, you really can't tell what they're thinking sometimes because they don't really show the emotions like Cancer does. They sort of hide it. No matter how deep you try to dive into this person, there's no reaction. There's just no signal of what he's really feeling. And I've personally met someone with a moon in Capricorn, and it was very difficult because they could easily stonewall you when they feel cornered to show some sort of reaction or explanation to something they did. They could create barriers. And that's the thing with Johnny Depp. If you really look at him, he's always serious. Like his facial expression, always serious. Not to mention now he's got the North Node in the 12th house. 12th house had to do with oscillation, with the occult, with hidden illnesses, secluded life. And he's got the North Node there, so that's pretty much where he's headed. Now, Johnny Depp is very well liked as he's got the Venus in the 10th house conjunct Mercury. So he's very good at communication skills. Not to mention he's a Gemini, but he's very good at communication skills, and it shows in his reputation, and he could win the hearts of the audience by his performance and his career. It's a very likable person. Now, Johnny Depp's got Saturn in the 7th house, meaning it's very difficult for him to keep a successful relationship. Okay? And throughout his whole life, he's got to really work at building one and pretty much be stable in one. That's like his hardest place, relationship. Johnny Depp's got the Sun in the 11th house of social and networks and the future, the dreams and inspiration. So he really does shine there with ideas again in the 11th house of Aquarius, making him very brilliant because he's a Gemini sun. So it falls right there. He's got Neptune in the 4th house and Scorpio, Neptune in Scorpio, and he's a very private person. But it's also retrograde, meaning that he could see through people because he could see through their deception easily, Now he's got Jupiter in the ninth house, meaning that he likes to learn, he likes to expand his mind, and he also likes to travel. And he's got an Aries. So he likes to be the first one to learn new things and the first one to travel a new place. Now I also wanted to mention how that Jupiter is actually cusping between the ninth house and the eighth house. And you know that the eighth house has to do with the occult, has to do with sex, has to do with magic, and it also has to do with loss and death, all right? But he also has it there, like in between the ninth and the eighth. Ninth house of expansion, eighth house of death. So it's in between, and you could see the kind of movies that he makes, you know, like Sweeney Todd, Sleepy Hollow kind of movies, you know. Now he's got Venus 26 degrees Taurus, squaring Saturn 23 degrees, well, semi-squaring Saturn in the seventh house in Aquarius. So his movie roles could really disturb his marriage life or his partnership life. Maybe he meets women on the set and it'll kind of interfere, you know, with his marriage life. Now, his moon 13 degrees Capricorn is smacked squaring his Jupiter 13 degrees Aries. And his moon falls cusping between the sixth house of work and routine and his fifth house of creativity. So this pressure created by the square between Jupiter and the moon actually creates a diamond of a personality, of a dark personality that he channels throughout all his movies. We all know that the moon, you know, it's a very dark planet in astrology. And Jupiter expands anything he sees, but when they're squared in those particular houses that are pretty much cardinal, he kind of rules the stage and is a leader in channeling creatively these dark characters for his work. Now, the Neptune in the third house in Scorpio is actually sextiling the moon, which also helps in those characters. You know, that dreamy, illusionary side of Neptune that's to do with imagination actually aids that moon side of him. Even when he's on those characters, there's something you can't really put a finger on when you see him. Like Mad Hatter, yeah, he's got all these crazy personalities and all, you know, he's laughing and all this, but all of a sudden he just goes serious and you're like, is he for real, or was he being real, or was he fooling around when he said that? Now the women that he is very much attracted to, he's got his Neptune in the third house in Scorpio, they're very sexual and they're very much around him, around the neighborhood kind of women, you know. And those are the women, those are the bad girls in his horoscope, which he should stay away from because they're not beneficial, because Neptune is not the beneficial one for the man. But his beneficial woman, which I believe he's married, is a Venus in the 10th house, Taurus. So she's a very beautiful woman. And she's very famous because it's in the 10th house of fame and recognition. So he'll do good with those type. Now he currently has Jupiter transiting his third house of surroundings, communication, siblings, transportation, social media too. And it could amplify his natal Neptune's effect there in Scorpio regarding hidden issues that need to be addressed, okay? And remember, his Neptune is retrograde, so things that he tries to cover up usually tend to uncover themselves. And with Jupiter transiting there could be a lot of things uncovering in his third house, okay? But then once Jupiter goes to halfway of Scorpio, then that'll be his fourth house, and you're going to see that he's going to be a little quiet throughout that time. You're not going to hear too much of Johnny Depp. And it's going to be like that for a whole year. Now, Johnny Depp currently has Saturn transiting his fifth house of creativity. And going on, I would say in the second half of it transiting Capricorn, Saturn, then it'll fall in his sixth house of health and, you know, and work. So he's going to have to take care of his health. But it's transiting the first degrees of Capricorn, so it's pretty much in his fifth house, and he probably feels uncreative lately. Feels difficulty creating because once Saturn is transiting the fifth house, you feel like you have a writer's block for some reason, and you really have to struggle to create things when it's in the fifth house. He will be having a Saturn return again once Saturn goes into Aquarius, because he's got natal Saturn in Aquarius. So we're going to see that he's probably going to end up in a lot of depression and a lot of marital issues, maybe a divorce, problems with relationships, you know, and so forth. Mars is currently transiting his 7th house and is retrograde in his 7th house. So he's probably having issues with marriage because it's very closely linked here with his natal Saturn. Okay, because natal Saturn is in his 7th house in Aquarius. Now, Mars is retrograding right in his 6th house, okay, between Aquarius and Capricorn throughout this time till August 27th. And he's going to be experiencing issues with his health. I think I saw a picture of him, and he wasn't, he didn't look too good, like he didn't look too healthy. So maybe there are things that are hidden because Mars going retrograde, it's a very passive aggressive energy. Health issues can arise in the 6th house if you're not careful and you're not watchful, that you have to address, and they were always there secretly, and now they're just popping out of nowhere. And I think I saw some pictures of him that he didn't look so healthy, like he was discolored in his skin. So maybe that could be an issue. He's got to really watch out when Venus goes retrograde in Scorpio in November, I think October, I'm not too sure, I would have to look. But when Venus goes retrograde this year, it's going to go retrograde in Scorpio in his 3rd house, okay, right where he's got Neptune. So he's got to be very careful what he says on social media. He's going to have to be careful what he says because he's not going to look too favorable. When Venus is retrograde, she kind of does the opposite of being pretty, as she always is in direct mode. She's going to probably turn it ugly. So he's got to be very watchful what he says. Okay, because it's going to go over his Neptune of secrets in the 3rd house. And a lot of truth could be unveiled that he might not like and might make him look really bad. Now, Mercury's going to go retrograde in his 1st house and in a good portion of his 12th house. So it's going to be a lot of things going behind the scene. He's going to be evaluating, his role in the world, his persona, how he's evolved as a person. And with this new eclipse happening in his 1st house, and I really wouldn't say the 1st house, I would really say, because it's in the 1st degrees of Leo, it'll happen in his 12th house. So it's going to happen on his North Node, very close proximity to his North Node, in the house where the North Node is at. And it's going to happen in the occult side of his, of his chart. So it's going to be something brewing behind the scenes for 6 months for him in regards to secrets, the past, and dealing with things that he used to deal with in the past. And I'm here thinking of an MK Ultra breakdown, because, whenever you have activity, especially as big as an eclipse, residing in the 12th house, just like Selena. Selena has Leo rising, just like Johnny Depp. And she went on the hiding recently. She said she was quitting Hollywood. And I noticed that her eclipse was going to happen, 2 eclipses, okay? It's going to happen too in Cancer, new eclipses, solar eclipses. So it's going to happen, these 2 eclipses, in his 12th house. So he's going to go a little bit in retreating, okay? And a lot of relationships could end for him, okay, in the 7th house. Not just marriages, but, relationships with career, people that he deals with, his businesses. A lot could end because it's happening also in his 7th house when he got the lunar eclipse in Aquarius in August. We all know that eclipses have to do with, intense energy brewing. Solar eclipses are new beginnings, and lunar eclipses are ending. And these eclipses are really much an eclipse return for him because he's got the North Node in Cancer. So yeah, the new eclipse will happen in Cancer and in Leo. And he's got his South Node, where he came from in, his karmic life. He came from the 6th house of work and daylight and daily routine and being very much involved with the day activities. But he's heading to the 12th house. So it's really much of an eclipse return. So yeah, it's going to be very powerful for Johnny Depp. Currently, the sun is currently transiting Cancer, but it will start going into Leo pretty soon by the ending of this month. And it's highlighting his 12th house. The sun is shining and illuminating his 12th house of the subconscious, the past. So it's very much highlighting that now. It seems to be very important now what's going on in his life. But then it's going to go into the 1st house for him. So the spotlight is going to be on his persona, what he's learned, what he's got to do now. Does he like who he is as a person, kind of thing, He's going to turn the attention towards him. But now he's turning the attention towards the past of where he's been through deceptions, people that are hidden, enemies, okay? this is what seems to be predominant now. Now Uranus, this is a very important one. Uranus recently entered Taurus, which falls right smack on his midheaven. So his career is very shaky, guys. Johnny Depp's career is very shaky. And it's going to be there for 7 years. So maybe this might be the ending of Johnny Depp's career, you know, and he's going to go into retreat mode for a very long time. You know, unless he shows a comeback once Jupiter moves into the last degrees of Sagittarius, you know, maybe that would help him. But other than that, like, it doesn't really seem as favorable, you know. So yeah, this is pretty much the reading for natal chart reading for Johnny Depp. If you guys want your natal chart reading, you know, just read the information below, and I'll start getting to your natal chart. Hey guys, check out my music channel where I write my own music, sing and play piano. Make sure to subscribe.